to the picks and bans for our second series of the day between 3BL and Carahouse.
Yeah, it's going to be up to Carahouse here to start off the bans. Maybe a Mexico potentially to be banned out, but it's actually Eagle Eye from them first. So 3BL, it actually gives them a little bit more flexibility because this is their go-to ban, and now they don't have to worry about banning it out, so they can maybe even get this to go further in their direction with the map picks on this one. So for 3BL, I'm not sure what they'd want to take off the table. Maybe a Mexico. It's not super strong for them normally. I'd say they're probably trying to lean into getting maybe sub-base on the table, but actually a Black Widow ban, I can see that one being a valuable ban as well. There's already been a decent amount of experience from Carahouse historically on that map. They're usually, aside from obviously what we saw in their opening match, they're usually pretty good on that map, but obviously Pacific Macta just kind of taking it to them very aggressively. So I'm actually surprised a little bit that they left it in, just knowing how weak that Carahouse looked on this map previously.
Yeah, definitely kind of interesting bans to start off with, maybe some mind games to begin. Especially that Eagle Eye ban, I'm not really sure why you're giving 3BL an extra ban. Like, because they're going to ban it. You might as well just choose something else. I don't really see the strategy behind it, but Ankara going to be the first map here, picked up by Carahouse.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right call for them. It's usually a pretty strong map for them, just knowing that both Shady and Rambo really like to play this map, and they're really great at opening the rounds on it as well. For 3BL, wouldn't be surprised to see a close quarters map picked here. Maybe a sub-base or a Mexico might be their go-to. They're also a really strong port team, though, and I know Carahouse has struggled on that map a bit in the past, so could open things up here. But Ankara, knowing that's the first map, I mean, looking at the history between these two teams, they've never been able to beat Carahouse on it before. I can't imagine it'll be the case here, so they need a really solid second and third map in this series to bring it back with. And you can see there, Penguin, the IGL, kind of trying to decide what might be that best step forward. And I do have to say, Penguin as an IGL, even though this team came out as the number 3 seed, I feel like this guy's one of the best IGLs in the West region right now.
Yeah, he definitely is. I definitely respect what he does for this team, and oftentimes is playing kind of that off position. There's that port we were talking about is going to be the choice here. Definitely had a lot of options, but I feel like they're just going to go with some comfort here for 3BL. Pick up this map, as you mentioned. Carahouse also not looking great on it, so could be a good opportunity to swing the maps back in your favor if you do end up losing Ankara, although they're going to start on Blacklist on Ankara as well, so I feel like it's not so bad for 3BL so far, but let's see what this last map is going to be.
Yeah, the only downside there is they don't have quite the good side choice on port, even though it is a stronger map for them. Not being on the GR first on port can kill the momentum of a lot of teams, so I'm curious to see if they've got something different planned for their Blacklist side here. In terms of secondary bans, I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a compound ban coming through here from actually either team. It hasn't been a super strong point, I would say, for either one of these teams. I feel like Mexico is a strong contender for that map 3, unless Carahouse doesn't feel confident in themselves on it. They don't play it all of the time, but when I have seen them play it, it looks pretty solid for them.
I mean, I was leaning toward the compound maybe as the map 3, just because both teams have kind of allowed it through in their previous couple of series. Subbase will be the ban for Carahouse, so it does come down to Mexico or compound. The choice there for 3BL. Didn't see them play that one in their previous matches, either team, actually at this point, on Mexico at this event so far, but let's see what they're going to go for. The conversation to be had amongst the 3BL members around what the map choice should be, but maybe not quite as much there amongst the team for the third map. Compound will end up being the ban, so it is going to be Mexico for the decider map.
Yeah, I actually think this is a pretty solid pool for 3BL to get out of this. I'm actually surprised that Carahouse banned out Subbase. I felt like that would have actually been a pretty good pick for them in leaving that in over Mexico, but it's still going to be tough, I think, to get to Mexico even in this series for 3BL, just knowing that Carahouse gets their favorite map first on the table, and this momentum could be enough to potentially carry them into a 2-0, especially knowing they're going to have that GR side to start off port when we get there as well. So if 3BL want to contend here, it's really going to have to start off with a confident showing on their Blacklist side in this first map.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about momentum. It is very important in this game we call Crossfire, and I think that could be a good chance for both of these teams. You know, like the Blacklist side, let's see how 3BL want to play it, how aggressive they're going to get, what these executions are going to look like, but also can Carahouse kind of calm things down? It's their first map pick. Play through the GR side, continue to dominate, and maybe they just end up being the favored team and winning it out anyway. I'm definitely feeling like that's the more likely scenario. You know, we all did vote for Carahouse at the end of the day, but you know, I've seen crazier things happen, and it's Ankara, so always a fun map. We just got to see it in our first series of the day. That one, it was fun for one of the teams, from what I could tell, but yeah, definitely could get aggressive from both sides on this one, so excited to watch.
Yeah, expecting a much closer one on our hands here, but Carahouse, the kind of fear I have in this match is they don't change anything, but 3BL is the type of team where it could maybe work against, but it could hurt them more throughout the tournament if they don't make those changes now, even if Carahouse pulls off a win with their kind of scrappy play style here.
100%. I mean, the way I see it, there's two possible avenues for this series. One, Carahouse steps up and performs to the level that we've seen from them in the past, and they just 2-0 it, make it easy, and lock it down. Or Carahouse continues to be a little bit shaky, and I think the door opens there for 3BL for maybe a 3-mapper. Whether it'll go the way of Carahouse or 3BL in that case, I think is a little bit harder to call. But if 3BL is going to win this series, I feel it's going to be in a close fashion, whereas for Carahouse, I think they can definitely turn it on. But we haven't really seen that from them at this event. We haven't really seen that from them in the previous event. So is it a fair statement to make, or are we still sort of just chasing the fairies, really, for Carahouse at this point? It doesn't feel like we're ever maybe going to recapture that kind of greatness.
We know they can get there, though. I mean, this was a top 4 team at CFS last year. It hasn't been that long for them. They've only made one roster change, which has arguably been a better player, I would say, even coming into this team. It just has to come down to that composure being there here. I think it was most noticeable for me in a player like Dola, when you think back to the sub-base game where he's just pushing B control by himself almost every single round on the GR side. But if they had just done a coordinated aggressive play, even in some of these circumstances, it would have gone significantly better, because I think back to CFS 2022, and Dolo was one of the highest fragging players at that event, but it's because they were playing together as a unit and setting him up, not just letting him kind of run in guns blazing on his own.
Yeah, it's definitely a good call. I would imagine that, I said this at the end of yesterday after ranking came out, but the whole region as a whole has to come together and kind of say, like, what is going wrong for us? Like, are we getting counted in our play style? Are we being too aggressive? Are we too disorganized? Definitely a lot of the stuff that we've touched on, but as a region, as a couple of teams, they need to work together to kind of say, okay, we need to change our style in this manner, because they have the ability, they have the skill to pull off some crazy shots and to win a lot of rounds, but to put everything together and to make the complete picture of winning an actual series and an actual match is a different story, and they have not been able to do it yet, neither of these teams. And I hope that they took last night, you know, watch Ranking Esports, take that loss, and then, you know, take some time together and really sleep on it, essentially, and to come back really strong today. Like, this might be the turning point for the Vietnamese region, and I really hope it is. Nothing against 3BL, like, they could also just come in here and outperform, and that would be really cool as well. But in terms of focusing on that Vietnamese region, this has got to be the match, I think.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's kind of do or die for both of these teams. This is essentially our wild card spot battle, if you assume that Pacific is now the second best team in this group, which it seems to be the case that they likely are here, which is kind of surprising to see. But I mean, Carahouse, knowing that Baisha's on the way, this is pretty much their tournament life on the line here if they can't win this match. Whereas 3BL, I mean, there's a world where I think it's more reasonable to say they could challenge Pacific than Carahouse taking down Baisha in that situation. So it's definitely some big pressure on their shoulders, but we are going to hop here into our first matchup of this one on Ankara here. As we look at the pick rates, it seems like currently, I would say this is probably the #1 picked map overall. You can see it's only been banned out 10% of the time, and teams just seem to love this map. I'm not 100% sure why, since for me it's actually one of my least favorite maps overall. I definitely like the action more on a sub-base or a Mexico maybe, but it is time to start this one and kick off this best of 3 series between Carahouse and 3BL.
It is time to hop into this one. You can see the game has begun. We got about 5 seconds before the action begins, as both teams gonna yell their hearts out before this match does begin to try to pump themselves up for what is, as we've all mentioned, a very important matchup and a very important first map. You got to get started well, and I think we're going to know right from the first 10 or so rounds what this one is going to look like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Carahouse could come out the gate so strong, and everything we talk about might be for naught. Similar to that last series, right? We were trying to make an argument maybe for Kungana, but as soon as it was 5-0 for all gamers, we were thinking, well, maybe everything we spoke about is kind of irrelevant if all gamers is going to play this well. And I wonder if that'll be the case today in this matchup as well. Carahouse to start off on the defense, 3-2 split. Nothing too out of the ordinary for them, though Rambo with a fairly forward position, looking to hold down the window with the Orm. And he's going to get his chance for a good quick shot. That is a great start for Carahouse.
Yeah, great opening pick, but Alucard right there to answer back on the other side of it. And that's a trade that they can't find anything out of to answer back with from Carahouse. So now they've got the 4-on-4. You can see 3BL here starting to rotate back towards the A bomb site. And it's only Dola holding on to the vent position, so he's going to have a pretty hard time trying to put a stop to it here, but he's got the angle to maybe catch them by surprise if Penguin and Hunt aren't ready in this position, but they're just going to waltz right into him here. Hunt trying to lead that charge. Dola good for a first, but it's only going to be a one-and-done situation, not quite enough to hold on to this bomb site.
Yeah, this is really rough for Carahouse. At least Dolo was able to trade 1-for-1. Did a bit of damage to Totson as well. So you could be looking at a good retake. They do have a lot of the map to actually come in and flank from the quarters area. So maybe they can get that going. Also, no plant just yet, as Alucard is pretty far out here. Not going to hit any shots just yet as he gets chased down. And JRK is able to make this a 3v2.
Yeah, extreme confidence from JRK taking that kind of a peek. He will lose his life, and now it's down to the 1v1. Lucas can't clutch it out. Penguin, he's hyped up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge play to start this one off. It looked a little bit sloppy there with Alucard losing control of that vent position, but Penguin, the IGL, gets it done here. And honestly, just some solid trade presence from 3BL. It looked like in the beginning of the round, Carahouse might have some of that pick advantage going their way, but 3BL really holding their own in these trades to make sure nothing got too far out of reach throughout that first round.
Oh, all right. Maybe we've got a bit of an issue here.
There is a headset that has been taken off, so
that's a good sign. Well, a good sign that there is an issue.
A good sign that there's an issue, but not a good sign in general.
No.
Technical pause coming out here. Hopefully
well,
we get this one fixed in just a moment.
Headset issue, not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Sure it'll get fixed.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is actually in that last round, I'm still kind of seeing some of the same problems for Carahouse as we have in previous matches. Rambo gets a really nice opening pick, but then instead of falling back, he decides to go for another re-peek and gives up his life. So instead of it being a 5-on-4, it's a 4-on-4 once again. And even then on the retake, a couple of individual peaks that are untradeable. And you're not really able to close that round out in the end. So early signs, obviously, still. It's only one round. We can't draw too many conclusions, but still have my reservations about Carahouse at this point.
So apparently the issue is that his mouse stopped moving. So that's not good. You cannot play Crossfire without being able to aim and shoot people. So hopefully he can just get that replugged in, perhaps. Or,
yeah.
Maybe it's a driver issue. I don't know. There's some issue that...
It could be a sensor issue. It could be a driver issue. It could be a mouse is breaking. It could be a mouse pad. I don't know if
the mouse exploded.
Have you ever had that where you've had like a little bump in your mouse pad and you go over it and the mouse just skips? I had that one time. It was super annoying.
I don't think I've ever had that, actually.
Yeah. It's just like, and that's something that I think actually can be problematic at LAN, because obviously all the players bring their own peripherals. They bring their own mouse, they bring their own mouse pad, and the mouse pad is the troublemaker a lot of the time, because obviously to fit it into your luggage or your backpack, you're going to fold it, and when you fold it, there becomes a bit of a crease sometimes. That's why if you've ever seen players walking around with like a flat cardboard like leaf, essentially, their mouse pad is in there because they don't want to bend it, because they don't want to get a crease in their mouse pad. So again, you know, obviously not saying that that is exactly the issue here, but it is something that you do have to be aware of coming to LAN. Lots of little things like that. So it could be as minor as that, you know, which is kind of crazy. But obviously, hopefully just a situation where you can unplug, replug, and be sorted.
Yeah, on the other side of things as well, it's a bit disappointing if you're 3BL to not be able to try and carry that momentum onto the next round after a pretty good 1v2 there from Penguin. But you can see the spirit's still very high on this team. They already look a lot more comfortable than they did in that matchup against Baisha, and you can tell they feel like this one is a much more winnable opponent on their hands. And once they hop back in, I expect this one to continue to be a pretty good game for them if Carahouse continues to make those same mistakes. Even though I did predict Carahouse to win here, I'm going to doubt them a little bit throughout this until they give me a reason to believe they've made those necessary changes.
Yeah. I also think it's good, actually, somewhat beneficial for 3BL. They had like a really hype finish to the first round, and everybody's really energetic and kind of, you know, jumping up and down, to actually have this little bit of a timeout afterwards to say, hey, we won a round, that's great, and now we can kind of calm down, and if we just play our game, you know, we're not going to overreact, we're not going to get too aggressive, we can kind of just calm things down, and we should be able to win from here. Even though it is just one round, it kind of proves it, and then you take a little break, and now you don't have any like over energy issues as Penguin's got his hands up. Maybe they're telling him not to touch anything at this point in time during the pause. Probably something like that, as everybody on the side of Carahouse is looking on at the crowd that has gathered around.
You ever heard the joke, how many
mouse.
people does it take to change a light bulb?
Yes.
That's what this reminds me of.
True.
How many people does it take to fix a mouse? Maybe we'll find out.
Well, in a lot of cases, I would say the more the better, but in this one, I feel like probably not the case. I feel like if you're reaching like 4+, it's probably too many people.
Yeah.
I'd say like a pretty ideal scenario is like 3.
Too many cooks?
Yeah, maybe 2. If they're like, if they know what they're doing.
That's a cool keyboard. Nice like color scheme.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of moving pieces. We got, you know, Smilegate's involved. We got the SPO. We have all the players, the teams, the coaches, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The handlers. So everybody's kind of working together to fix the issue. So generally going to be 4+.
Hopefully just a matter of moments before we get back into this one, though. You can tell the teams are getting a little anxious as well on their end to get back into it, especially 3BL. I mean, on their end, they don't have anything in particular they're waiting on, just ready to get back at it and see if they can keep things going in their direction. And so far, seems to be the case, but see here, Carahouse looks like they may be close to figuring something out here. Doesn't seem to be as many people around them, so maybe we're in a good position here to get this one back and rolling.
Hopefully. Never fun to have a technical pause in the middle of your game. Can't go anywhere. And it sort of only prolongs the time where you have to keep that mental focus, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it does become incredibly draining over the course of these events. I often find, like, because your normal sort of like weekend event is going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? You can run like an 8-team, like double elim bracket in 3 days. And by that third day, like I've done a lot of those kinds of shows, and by that third day, I'm kind of like, oh man, I'm tired. But this is a different ball game. Like this is almost a 2-week long episode, essentially. So it's just as much about keeping yourself mentally and physically fit over the entire course of the 2 weeks that we have here, as it is just about showing up to playing your games.
Not just for the players, but also for us, the casters.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a lot of work. Everybody's here for a long time.
Yeah.
You gotta be tip-top shape the whole time.
You know, you're in a foreign country.
Sick. Yeah.
You're staying away from home. Obviously, you know, it's hard, especially with long days like this, to kind of talk to people back at home, family, friends, loved ones, etc. Time zone differences as well for a lot of players. Maybe not so much for the Vietnamese team, but certainly for those teams coming over from the western side. So there's a lot to sort of think about. But I think we're ready to go straight back into the game, and it is going to be a 1-0 scoreline for 3BL after we've seen the first round of Ankara. Carahouse will try to make amends for that here in the second round.
You can see them going for a pretty familiar strategy in this one as well. Very aggressive towards this A-long control. They've got 4 players pushing out here, and you can see 3BL getting a sense for it and starting to back off a little bit, only leaving Hunt in that A-long position to try and catch them if they push all the way through. The rest of 3BL now working their way over towards B control. They've got 3 players working their way up into Hotel. It's going to be a nice little charge here by Horus to lead into it. There's only 1 player, though, on the B bomb side. It is going to be Rambo trying to hold it down for Carahouse.
Yeah, and at this point, with this big swing over to the left side of the map, Hunt just playing point over there, seeing what he can see. Nobody on the side of Carahouse is going to peek him yet, though. Just kind of waiting and hoping that 3BL do push into the A site. Now, looks like it is Rambo still holding on to this angle. No push coming in. I do like this from 3BL. I think that playing with as much time as possible and trying to get Carahouse to be the ones to make the first false maneuver or unfortunate timing is definitely good. And take a look. I mean, they're going to rotate back right as Carahouse are just doing a massive swing over to B without much information. And this is going to end up being a 5v1 push onto A.
Yeah, I think if you're going to make that push, you need to get info early. And they have just started to push their way back over toward A. So that's a good decision from Carahouse. They might even have 3 players on this side of the map when the hit comes through from 3BL. Decent setup in the end from Carahouse. They get their timing right. Rambo for 1. Dola can't quite double down, and Lucas actually fails to find the trade. A missed shot from Rambo. Sidearm out. Still gets the job done. Keeps the numbers alive for Carahouse, and the double nade won't quite land from Carahouse, but they have done enough to dissuade 3BL from getting that bomb plant down, and they're not even waiting for the plant. They're not even waiting for their teammate to make the rotation. They just make the 2-man push in and give up the round, and I am concerned.
Yeah, I mean, that's a round where it looked like they had everything they needed to win on the side of Carahouse, but again, the patience not there when it's needed, and 3BL able to capitalize right on it as they move forward in a 2-0 fashion here. It's going to be up to Carahouse to make the adjustments. I mean, this is the map they wanted in this series, and so far it's not really a good showcase of why they've picked it. It just seems like they want to make these aggressive decisions, but they do not pan out at all. Meanwhile, 3BL, I like the approach they have here. They're going for these fakes. They're really toying with that over-aggression as well from Carahouse. You could see it in that previous round where they pulled them back and forth between the sites and ultimately gave themselves a good opportunity to have that execution go their way.
Yeah, that's absolutely the way you got to play it as 3BL. They came with a good plan. Carahouse, yeah, I mean, 2 people pushing before the guy behind is not there yet for the flank is pretty concerning for sure. So I think you guys both on the right points so far, and 3BL looking to push down in B bottom. There has not been a lot of information given on over. We do have JRK in position to throw a flash if need be. And will 3BL go for this push? Still a lot of time, especially in 3BL standards. They will use this time, and they will take their time before they go for a push. But here we go. It does look like they do want to push in 4 under B bottom.
Good counter util out from Carahouse, and a great flash from JRK is going to net him that initial kill onto Hunt. Maybe this is where things can start to turn around for Carahouse. He goes again on his own, tries to make it happen, and does. It's 1-for-1 across the board so far. After that initial opener for Carahouse being clean. But Penguins brought one back onto Rambo, and again it's down to 2-on-2 with 3BL having time to reconsider whether they want to go to the B site now. Certainly have the opportunity to swindle their way back over to A, and Penguins kind of cutting off the rotate a little bit. He has spotted Dola there, and what a shot! This guy is having a bit of a day at the moment. Alucard takes the trade. Great setup, and gotta say, this 3BL squad is quietly starting to impress me. I think we didn't get to see them put their best foot forward in the opening game against Baisha and to be expected. But, I mean, look, right now, it's kind of captain obvious to say 3-0 3BL is looking like the better team. But just the way that they're playing these rounds out seems to be a little bit more coordinated than Carahouse.
It definitely is. This time, though, Shady going to cause some trouble on along with Dola. They pick up one apiece. Totson still trying to get these trades, finds himself one, but Carahouse definitely have the positive start they were looking for here. Lucas takes another down with a nade, and just like that, the aggressive play on a long does pan out for them. I believe they called the pause before that, though. Still, maybe a good chance for them to reflect on those first 3 rounds. Even though they won this 4th one, it's still a 3-1 situation where they definitely have some good changes they could make during this pause time.
Yeah, I was wondering if Carahouse's aggression out there from quarters was going to come back to bite them, but they hit their shots. They had those nice angles. You can see Penguins trying to just calm everybody down. It's just the 1 round, right? It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm saying it as he's saying.
He looks pretty hyped up himself. I think he needs some calming down.
No, he's having a big day out so far. I mean,
sure.
Penguin's not necessarily one of those guys that's going to be clicking on heads and going back and forth, but so far he's doing it. So, sure, go ahead. You know, be my guest. I'd like to see more of that. And I like how they had that push on B bottom too. They sent out a couple of guys, and then Horus is right there behind them to kind of clean up. He's, I feel like, their best rifler at this point in time, and it's kind of what Seven was saying yesterday about Kungarna and a strategy they might use. Did work out for 3BL there. But let's see where we go from here. It is just 4 rounds in. It's 3-1. And 3BL are looking strong, but Carahouse at least on the board, so maybe not ready to, you know, go insane in 5 different directions just yet for Carahouse.
Yeah, we'll see how they've adapted as they come back in here after the pause. They're certainly going to need it, being down 3-1. And right now we are going to catch a replay of that previous, though, where Lucas and Dola aggressively pushed out of A long, the nade as well, helping finish that job and getting them their first round on the board here. But as we can see, we're back to the 3BL standard, and that is bait out these players and run down the clock. The big question now is, will Carahouse continue to give them the opportunity to find those kills early on?
Well, I do think the spread right now for Carahouse is just fine. They're not over leaning on one of these sites. They're not sending out too many players too aggressively. The one guy up in office is fine. Like, that's pretty standard just to try to get some information with Rambo. Other than that, just kind of sitting back, waiting for 3BL to make the first move, which I don't think is a bad idea at all if you are Carahouse. As Penguin trying to push forward, isn't going to get much done. Just takes a little bit of damage.
Yeah, it is going to be a bit of a pace slow down here, but Penguin again still hitting the shots today. Takes down Shady in mid, and now it's wide open.
He's doing a little bit of a famous at the moment. He's pretty much killing everyone with headshots. I think every single kill bar 1 has come from a headshot for Penguin. There you go, 5 kills, 4 headshots. So he's looking sharp today. Dotson as well, 5 from 5, but those ones don't quite land for Penguin. And we're back to the 4-on-4. Rambo with, again, a miscellaneous push from Carahouse, and it gives up the numbers. The numbers advantages with 3BL again. Carahouse just cannot help themselves, it seems. And it is largely to the benefit of 3BL, the team on the blacklist side, who are making their way now into that B-bomb site and absolutely throwing the kitchen sink at JRK. Somehow he's managed to survive, and there's 30 seconds left on the clock here, so 3BL do have to be pretty quick about it, but getting that kill stabilizes things a little bit. 2-on-4 for the post plan. Tough one to win here for Carahouse.
Yeah, Lucas and Dola trying to work their way back into this bomb site. Lucas, he's completely isolated from this smoke grenade they've thrown down, but Dola as well, he's stuck behind it. And they're already down to halftime left on the clock to get this retake. Totson finds the first. He's looking for the second, but Lucas does manage the trade, make it a double kill, but thankfully it is going to be saved, and 3BL move on to an even bigger lead for themselves. And this is starting to look a little bit scary now for Carahouse.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think, you know, pushing out very aggressively from Rambo, getting caught out on the backside, definitely a bit of an issue. It did leave the one guy alone on B who just got just pummeled with utility. Like they're not using too much when they're just kind of hanging around and waiting to go for an execution later on in the round. So they were just able to throw everything at them and slowly take over the B site. Some of the shots not super crisp from the side of 3BL, and I think, you know, kind of swinging very aggressively on that last guy almost came back to bite them and give him the clutch. But, you know, a win's a win. They get there in the end. They certainly played the round out better from beginning to end. And it's definitely worrying for Carahouse, but I do think that 3BL are also playing a good game so far.
Yeah, I mean, what does kind of worry me is that the only round that Carahouse have actually won has been that crazy all-out brawl outside of A. I mean, it's no doubt that they can go toe-to-toe in terms of the aim department, but when the round breaks down a little bit more, it tends to be a bit more of a methodical round, or there's a bit more thinking involved, or just time, right? Carahouse seem to get bored or antsy, and they fall into their own bad habits. So it's not as if that one round is even really filling me with a whole lot of confidence. This is looking fantastic for 3BL right now, and they are far and away looking like the better team in this matchup at this point in time.
You can see now a 4-man push towards the B bomb site starting to happen for 3BL. This time, it is going to be 2 players on site coming out from Carahouse. You've got JRK and Rambo here. Nice little crossfire setup on the back of site. Meanwhile, you still have that solo player of Hunt holding on to the A-long position, but Dola sneaks out, takes him down, and now they've got to respond and see what they want to do about it. They're probably just going to leave it for now, but you can see it's peeled off at least 1 player from the pack for 3BL, but they still seem pretty eager to challenge on B.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well this is going to go. It seems like this time around Carahouse have the good read, and they have so many different angles to just pop out and end this push and make it look very easy. That time around, you get that pick on the Hunt. 3BL kind of losing information. They don't want to go for a rotation. They just push in, but Carahouse were just so ready for that.
I think that's a good example, though, of how those kinds of rounds go right for Carahouse, and then they get baited into thinking that that was the correct play, because, again, that comes down to a player that pushes out from A, wins a 1v1. Yes, they get the info off of it, but what happens if he loses the 1v1? He pushes out on his own. I mean, Shady and Rambo are going to go together in unison this time, so it ends up being a 1-for-1, and I do much prefer that from Carahouse. In saying that, though, the A bomb site is completely clear, and Carahouse are going to send it straight through mid. Another unorthodox strategy. Surely not expecting this, and that play with the C4 needs to be very careful because there's a wrap coming around from behind. Alucard, I think, has heard it, but that's a huge swing, and he's screaming for some assistance right now. He knows he's going to go down. Totson needs to try to recover it, can't. And look, I mean, that is just Carahouse in a nutshell, isn't it? But madness, madness.
Yeah, I mean, it's unexpected for sure. You wouldn't expect the entirety of the enemy team to be flanking you that early in the round. So in this circumstance, it does work. But 3BL, I feel like if the bomb was in the hands of one of those forward players, they wouldn't have had to even risk anything there. They could have just went right into sight and been perfectly fine in that situation. But, I mean, Lucas picking up 4 on the flank. Can't really ask for more out of him in that round. And of course, now Shady gets aggressive, finds the opening pick, and Rambo as well takes down Hunt. They still want to take this fight to them on A long. It's Alucard answering back with the kill on to Rambo, but Shady, this is where you would want to back off, but he still is solo trying to take these fights.
Yeah, you don't have to do this, especially when 3BL have kind of shown that they want to take, you know, 2v1, 3v1 on that angle. But he is going to call the whole team over. And in response, 3BL is just going to back all the way back near the spawn and essentially just feel the pressure and hope that somebody is going to get over aggressive and just dry peek a sniper rifle. Alucard's got that angle here, and he nearly is able to get an angle onto Dola, but just going to back away and essentially just let Carahouse run around a little bit. 3BL definitely want to slow this round down.
Such a bizarre play style. They're like almost just roaming across the map as a unit and not really giving a care if they leave one of these bomb sites exposed. They're more keen on playing in this 4-stack in the round. You can see the remaining players have a pretty wide open A bomb site here for 3BL to just take right away from them, but not a huge fan of this setup from Carahouse in this round. It really just leaves it up to Shady to grab that information, and the A-bomb site on this map is not very easy to retake, knowing Carahouse on post plants hasn't looked the best. It's almost too much of a risk for them to not play someone on this side.
Half rotated across already though, and Lucas is on the fast flank, so don't necessarily mind it too much. He might even be able to find a bit of a cheeky one. Dola actually spamming away at Horus, and while that timer is ticking away and working favorably for 3BL, you're going to have to see these last two individuals step up in a huge fashion. It's all onto Alucard, and I mean, how do you multi-frag with the orb? It's just not going to happen. So Carahouse back, I suppose. I'm still skeptical about how they're playing a lot of these rounds, but can't argue with results. The scoreline will be 4 apiece.
Yeah, now they're in a pretty difficult position, I would say, on the side of 3BL, because the GR side, you're generally going to be punished a lot more for playing overly aggressive. So I actually think on the BL side, Carahouse should in theory do even better than what they're doing right now on a map like this. So it's definitely worrisome to see a potential lost half now for 3BL, considering how well this one started for them. And it just seems like they're not ready for this aggression that Carahouse has kind of taken to another level, even though I would still say most teams that were ready for this should be able to hold off what they're doing, because it's still a little bit too aggressive. But this time Penguin, he is ready for the response, takes down Shady in mid.
Yeah, it's definitely a good pickoff. I think that Carahouse have been getting a lot of value by just double peeking very aggressively from the GR side and kind of roaming around like a wolf pack of sorts, and just isolating members of 3BL that weren't quite able to handle the pressure. But 3BL, especially in this round, you can see they're just all the way back, and they're saying, okay, somebody's going to peek from one of these angles. Everybody just take an angle and don't get picked off, essentially. And they get the pick first, and now they're going to look for an execute, maybe onto A. As we can see, Carahouse is just pushing out of office. And if 3BL, you know, they have a little bit of pep in their step, they could have just gone onto A, but instead, they're coming back here, and they are getting hounded down by the pack that is these 3 Carahouse members.
It continues to work for them, but this Wolfpack play style, I mean, Dola finds another. JRK is just holding them in position, and now it's a 4-on-2 hunt. There's no way out. Dola gets the double kill, and already they've completely turned this one around. 4 rounds in a row after a 4-1 lead against them. They take the half 5-4, and it seems to be this play style is starting to work for them.
Absolute madness of a half, really. And Carahouse up to their usual tricks, I suppose. Making it work. When the aim's on point, it does seem to work for them. So really quite a solid half, actually, from them in the end as they move over to the blacklist side. A little bit more favored on Ankara.
Yeah, definitely a bit worrying rather, for the side of 3BL if they they tried everything they could, including some pretty severe passivity to just, you know, feel the pressure and then go for a push. But I feel like they were almost too slow. Like, they got the pick and then they just waited. And then, you know, Carahouse can pretty much come from any angle. You got to expect it, but even though they were checking some of the angles, it's like 2v1 double peeks into the one guy that's watching it from 3BL, and eventually everybody just gets picked off and they just kind of fall apart. So Carahouse, they found something that works for them. It's not very standard, but the very aggressive play gets them ahead, moving into their blacklist side on their map. And let's see what their blacklist side is going to look like, because maybe this one is a bit more standard as the aggressors.
Yeah, you would think this side of the map should be an advantage for Carahouse, especially coming into it now with 4 in a row, 1 for themselves. We do see a 3-player stack on the A-bomb site, but Shady actually going to be working his way into the middle of the map with an They've got 2 here in the opening round. Surprisingly, neither was on Rambo. It was Shady and Dola with in hand to kick off this round, but Dola not going to find anything, so he goes back to spawn to actually swap out for that AK just in time to make sure he has it for the push, and it is going to be a split onto the A-bomb site. This 3-stack is going to be pretty brutal, though, to go up against.
Shady not going to connect anything to hold off the rotations, but just giving away his position, and Lucas straight on in. Nice double kill. Rambo in there as well for the trade onto JRK. And that about wraps it up for 3BL. I mean, a 4-on-2 retake, they're not going to be particularly easy, especially when they were still a little bit worried about rotating their way past mid. So that took them some time as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of trickery with some, like, smokes and flashes thrown over the top on a B, but with 3 people on A, to just get actually run over is kind of not okay. I mean, it was a pretty clean entry, but also Lucas was kind of just sprinting at them and still not able to quite hold it off, as it is the last member to go down on the side of 3BL. And Carahouse have certainly found their stride, as we mentioned, from the Blacklist side. This is kind of what we expected. They are just going to send it. And you can see Penguin now getting a little bit frustrated, and, understandably, as they just kind of get bowled over there on A.
Yeah, it was such a bizarre fashion to lose in as well. I mean, you had Dola just going up the stairs past a player. He didn't even attempt to fight him, but he just trusted his teammates to grab those trades, and they did. So I think 3BL just weren't expecting Dola to run up there before players even responded beneath. So now it's going to be on 3BL to really adapt here and show us what they can do, because they may have had a 4-1 lead, but now they've lost 5 in a row, and it's looking like this could quickly slip away from them. And honestly, I'm surprised they've let it come to it, because Carahouse hasn't really changed their play style too drastically. If anything, they've just got even more aggressive.
Yeah, well, it's still catching 3BL off guard, so that is the name of the game, really, as far as Carahouse is concerned.
Yeah, I figured that 3BL would handle this pressure a bit better. I thought their style would work pretty well against Carahouse, but Carahouse kind of just turned it up to 11 to a level that maybe 3BL are just not able to handle. And they found a very nice, level that works for them. And the over-aggression and the craziness, they went back home and they said, you know what, guys, we're not being crazy enough. Like, we gotta send it even harder. Like, we gotta go even crazier. And it's working out. And they're hitting their shots, right? Like, everybody's playing really well on the side of Carahouse after the first bunch of rounds. They get warmed up. They begin to get more aggressive. They are hitting their shots. And, all power to them. They are just rolling over 3BL now.
Yeah, it's a great position for them to be in here. They've got all the momentum on their side, and you can tell 3BL looking a little distraught in this one, but not out of it just yet if they can find a round soon. But 7-4 already would be pretty drastic, considering it's been quite a while since we've seen 3BL put up around themselves. We do have Totson playing the corner pocket here. Rambo doesn't check it. Totson gets the double kill to open up the round. Hunt finds another, as well as Penguin from above, to make this one a 2-on-1. But Shady, he is on the lurk all by himself, trying to sneak in to fight Penguin before this can become a 2-on-1.
Oh, dear.
And he already has
10
found
seconds.
the kill. 10 seconds. He has to get the bomb and plant as quickly as possible.
No.
He has maybe barely enough time to get this plant off. It's going to be down to the wire. And just barely, less than a second, but it's not going to matter for too much longer. Alucard comes in, gets the round, and 3BL finally can say they've put another one back up.
I thought for sure he didn't have time, but he just barely got that one down. Didn't matter too much as he immediately got cleaned up. As you could see, 3BL, they get the win. They're not too happy just yet. They need to get a bit more than just one round, and that one was kind of crazy, right? If there wasn't the one guy, I think it was Totson in that corner, that wasn't checked to pick off 2 kills and really throw a spanner into the works, then probably Carahouse just roll over them again. So it's not easy going on the side of 3BL, but they're keeping themselves in it. They get around. Let's see if they can build on that, or if Carahouse just say, okay, well, that was a bit of a fluke. We just continue to send it, and maybe they continue with their wins.
Well, Dola not messing around in this one. Going to go straight out into mid alongside Shady. Not a aggressive hold from 3BL in that area of the map, though, so no exchanges just yet. Alucard is watching. And he's boosted up. I think Carahouse is going to run straight into him, though, and that's a good, quick shot from Alucard. He'll be a difficult one to dig out. No util getting tossed in his direction, but he is stuck. He cannot move, and now the nades are going to start to rain on through, as in the meanwhile, Dola's been able to pick one more up. Carahouse have slowed things down, though. They want to find another pick before they accelerate, which is going to be given to them by Totson, and that opens the avenue up into A.
Yeah, it's a perfect position for them to be in now, but Hunt on the flank, able to find one already. They still have full control over the A-bomb site now for the post plant, but 3BL is going to be very quick on this rotation. JRK holding that corner box, has to at least guarantee one to try and hold onto this bomb site. But Dola, he has the key position here. As soon as that swing comes through, he can just run right up the stairs and turn on them here. But actually, Alucard is ready for it, but it may not matter. Lucas and JRK hold the line and get it done, and Carahouse remains out in the lead.
Again, kind of a crazy one. They push in underneath Alucard and make their way onto A. Some big pickoffs to make it an even trade, but at the end of the day, just not enough on the retake. It can be pretty difficult to retake that one, and Carahouse were able to get this bomb down and defend it pretty well. So 3BL, definitely pretty frustrating for them. You have to feel it, but Carahouse certainly in control. Dola going to get that first pick off onto Penguin already. There are a bunch of 3BL members here as well, as Horus is going to get one. He picks up two and does get traded back, though, and Carahouse will win the big fight that just happened in the office.
Yeah, now it's down to the 1-on-3 for Totson. It looks like 3BL has called for a pause after this one as well. No surprises considering it hasn't been a good string of rounds for them in this one. Shady going to spot out Totson right away. Here comes the triple swing, and that will get an 8th round up here for Carahouse, who have really turned this one around. But 3BL, it's the exact opposite story here. A great start, but since then, they've just let everything slip, and it almost seems like they're trying to play like Pacific was here, but they know what's coming at them, but it's so aggressive, they still can't handle it.
It's kind of sad, isn't it? Because like when you look at it fundamentally, it almost feels like 3BL is playing correctly and Carahouse is playing incorrectly, and yet Carahouse is making it work. And I mean, this is the conversation that we keep having about Carahouse, that they're such an impressively individually skilled team that they can kind of make these weirder strategies or setups or pushes work just by pure virtue of their superior firepower. And when their firepower is working, it goes exactly like this. They just roll through their opponents. But sometimes when it's not working out, then it becomes a little bit more problematic. Still, in this case, I guess they can continue to keep that hype train rolling, and Ankara might be done and dusted pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely it does feel like Carahouse are running away with this one. And, you know, everything you said is pretty true. I do think they're trying to play that style, that passive style, to absorb the pressure and then bounce back. But it does feel like Carahouse are just winning too many of these firefights. Like, the positioning, I think, is fine from 3BL, but they're just kind of getting rolled over and losing a lot of these 1v1s, these 2v1s. And it is a big problem, right? Because at the end of the day, in CFS, in Crossfire, you got to be able to hit those shots. Penguin was doing really well early on. Carahouse wasn't really. They were kind of not being aggressive, and they were getting picked off one by one. But now that they've kind of moved in as a unit, as we take a look at the replay here once again, this is what's happening. They just keep on winning these 1v1s. Horus is like trying his best to hold it down, but he can't do it alone.
Yeah, it's a really tough spot to be in now, down 8-5. There's pretty much no room for error on the side of 3BL if they want to win this one in regulation. Meanwhile, Carahouse continuing to take risks and be rewarded for it on this BL side of the map. And this is what I was worried about. I feel like 3BL, they needed a much stronger first half to ensure they could win this game, because on the Blacklist side, this kind of poking and prodding they like to do on Carahouse actually works really well on this side of the map on Ankara. It shouldn't have worked as well as it did in the first half, but now they're in a situation where they can kind of just steamroll their way forward. And on top of that, you've got to talk about Lucas here as well. 20-7 after having, I think, less than 10 combined on the entirety of that first match. He's really turned it around today as well.
Solid stuff indeed. And this is actually a default round from Carahouse. They are just waiting to see if there's going to be any pushes from 3BL. Being very patient. They haven't been rewarded for it. Smoke into what A main. Not going to prompt anything from Carahouse. A little bit of a rotation maybe off from B, looking for some info over there. Not going to be seeing too much though.
Yeah, I think just trying to play with the pace a little bit. Just coming off the timeout from 3BL. Wanted to see if they had anything planned specifically. And if not, they can just go for kind of a crazy execution, a very aggressive one a little bit later on. As it looks like maybe they want to split this one up, although we could rotate over towards B. But there's still a couple of guys, JRK and Lucas, who are hanging around outside of A and might be trying to make some noise while the actual C4 is going into B.
Yeah, I like the play call here. They've got to sell this fake really well, though, if they want to force the over-rotation. Lucas goes down very early, so now there might not be an over-rotation. Alucard finds Dola, but still Rambo has snuck onto the B bomb site and already wants to plant this bomb. JRK as well somehow wins the duel over Alucard, and now they've got full control over the B bomb site, and 3BL, they kind of just let him have it a little bit too easily.
Yeah, the strategy was sound, the execution maybe not so much from Carahouse, but even still they find a couple of big individual frags, and that's going to get them through this round. That was hanging on a knife's edge, but now it's down to Hunt to try to solo out a 1-on-3, and he does know the position of Rambo. Still got to find another one on top of that. This should be a tough round to win. Indeed it will be. 9-5. Again, I don't think Carahouse gets through that round unless they're on point. Because Rambo's able to win his duel, he's able to get the bomb plant down, and that's causing problems for 3BL. But even if they lose one more player at an inopportune time, that round just completely falls apart.
Yeah, it just seems like Carahouse, even though they're playing a little bit disjointed, a little bit sloppier, they're getting away with it because they're just hitting the shots all day long here. I mean, Shady already gets the kill on to Penguin, making it happen. Rambo doesn't even have to snipe in this matchup, but Alucard going to meet Dola in mid to equalize for a moment, but Horus and Totson have already taken a decent amount of damage here, so it's still pretty favorable for Carahouse in this position.
Yeah, just waiting to see if anyone else is going to get aggressive. 3BL, not necessarily that type of team to look for those picks, but a couple of them tried to swing onto Shady, and they only did a bit of damage to him afterwards. They did get that pick on the Dola, as you were mentioning. So this does make this a 4-on-4. Looks like this bomb is going in towards B with just a 2-2 split here from the side of 3BL. Last time it was pretty rough. I mean, they got a couple of picks for free, and then they weren't able to quite finish it off. As Alucard feeling the pressure under B bottom. Might be enough information to say that this push is coming in, as Alucard is not going to win that duel, but we do have Horus to at least swing for one, but he loses his life, and now the three of them are closing in on Hunt, who is alone. Still plenty of time, as Hunt is going to go down, and now it's a 3-on-1. It looks like Carahouse might be able to close it out here.
Certainly seems that way. 3-on-1. Lucas already putting so much damage down onto Totson as well. And I don't see how he can get through this one alive. It should be Carahouse 10-5 on Ankara. Util's getting tossed out as well to make his life even more difficult, and he's certainly taking his time about making these peaks. He's gotten Lucas and Rambo down quite low, but still JRK is there as the insurance fund. And Totson is not making any inroads onto this site, which is a problem. Time is ticking away from him. Flash pops in his face. He's stuck in the corner. And even now, if he was to find some kills, he wouldn't be able to win it. It's 10-5 for Carahouse on map 1.